Hello, everyone. My name is Melody Johnson. I'm the Director of Education and Professional Development at ARC of Monroe in Rochester, New York. And I'm also a Region 1 lead out here in Western New York for the Regional Centers for Workforce Transformation. We're going to be talking today about the HCBS Settings Rule, probably something that we've known about for quite some time, about 9 years. But all of a sudden, it crept up on us, and last Friday, everything was supposed to be in place, and we were supposed to be compliant with everything. So I know a lot of agencies are kind of scurrying at the last minute to make sure that we have a full understanding of it, that we have our policies and procedures in place. And so today's workshop is really geared more towards the frontline employees, DSPs, frontline supervisors, the people that are going to be working directly with people supported, and the people that are going to be there when the state auditors come in to see if you're complying with the regulation. So we want to make sure that we're covering all of these things and that people are well prepared to be doing what they should when they have those visits, in addition to the fact that it's just the right thing to do. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get this party started. All right. So again, this is the settings rule. My name is Melody Johnson, and let's get going. So objectives for today is we're going to start with an overview of what the settings rule is, then discuss a little bit why it's important, but most importantly, the majority of today's segment is going to be talking about what your role is in supporting the expectations of the settings rule. So here's a little bit of the regulation stuff, right? This regulation took effect back in March 17th, 2014. It was written with the expectation that everything would be in place by March 17th of 2023. And here we are. That was last week. So essentially, the new standards are there to promote community involvement and independence. It has a lot to do with the person-centered approach and person-centered planning that hopefully we've all been doing for quite some time, but it really dictates some of the expectations of that. It's also important to note that the standards apply to all settings. There's a variety of settings that these apply to, not just facilities like yours or mine. And the types of things that are expected is that it's integrated and supports people to get into the greater community, that we're providing support for people to seek employment in competitive environments, that people have the same access as you and I to jobs, rights of privacy, respect. Certainly, again, we'll go into a lot more of these in detail as we move forward. So, why the need? Well, quite honestly, it's all about quality, right? And we know from NADSP and JFK Jr. that quality is defined by the point of interaction between the person supported and their DSP. That is where the rubber hits the road. And so we want to make sure that at that point of interaction, we're providing the top-notch, best quality services possible, and that we're getting away from some of the habits of the past. I've been in this field a long time. I actually started working professionally in the 90s. And there's been quite an evolution in the work that we do. And hopefully it just continues to evolve to a better place. And, it's all driven by quality. But my question is, what is quality, right? It's a very relative term. And I'll give you an example of that. Everybody get close to your computers here and hit up in the chat box the answer to this question. Do you own and use an iPhone or an Android? Go ahead and give me an answer. There we go. Pretty good mixture again. Some of both, some of both.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure.
All right. So the point here is, why? Why do you use one and not the other? Some people like the camera better on the Android. Some people prefer the interface ability with other Apple products of the iPhone. My son, he's been bugging me for a long time to switch to an iPhone, but it's just not in my comfort zone. I'm more comfortable with an Android. I tend to like the interface of the Android more. It is a quality product to me, right? You iPhone users, I absolutely know you are probably the biggest champions of iPhones because that is quality to you. It's relative to each one of us. And that goes to many other domains too, not just the phones that we use. It could be, if you prefer Dunkin' Donuts or Tim Hortons, if you prefer McDonald's or Burger King, everybody defines quality different. And so therefore, the people we support also have a relative and different and person-centered idea of what their quality is, right? So what I also want to remind everybody, is that history has its eyes on us, right? And we have to remember that those that don't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And so I hate to bring it up because we've all seen the videos. We hear that eerie music still in our head, right? From the Willowbrook video and the expose. But quite honestly, it's important that we move past some of the institutionalized behaviors and supports that we may have been providing. One of my favorite educators back when I first started in the field, it was Tom Pomerantz. I don't know if any of you have come across him, but he had a great quote that has stuck with me for 20 plus years. And he said, an institution is a state of mind. We've taken people out of the physical institutions and helped them live in homes of their choice and with other people and maybe sometimes in their own home. But if we continue to put restrictions on them that are not person-centered and that are almost more parenting-like, right, than supporting someone's life, have we really moved too far past the institutionalized thought and process? So we want to make sure in moving forward, and certainly the settings rule really drives this point home, is that we move beyond those types of behaviors and provide supports that are not institutional-like, right? That they're supports that you and I would want should we ever need to receive 24/7 support. So let's get into it a little bit. One of the biggest factors of the HCBS settings rule is person-centered planning. And we all know that people have life plans and that they meet every 6 months to review their life plan and to talk about their goals. Here's some expectations you might not know that are supposed to happen, right? Those life plan meetings are supposed to be held at a time and location of a person's choosing, not based on when everybody else can attend, not based on the manager's schedule or the care coordinator's schedule or the program schedule. It's driven by the person supported. So if the person supported doesn't want to miss program or doesn't want to miss work for that day, the meeting should be held outside of those timeframes so that they don't have to. They're also supposed to be able to choose attendees of their choosing. And you know what? That gets really tricky because, it also says that all these team members for the person are supposed to be there or supposed to provide their input. That's the key factor here, right? So if the person supported doesn't want the nurse there because the nurse is always, cranking on them about their weight or what they're eating or how much exercise they're doing, they don't have to have the nurse there. The nurse can send their thoughts or their notes with another person. It doesn't need to be the nurse. It doesn't need to be the manager. And sometimes there's family members that the person supported doesn't want there. That is supposed to be driven by that person. Those meetings are supposed to reflect the choices and life and culture of that person. The plan is supposed to be written in very plain language, translated if necessary, right? It doesn't always need to be, we can have an English version, but at the same time, if the person's primary language is Spanish or Portuguese, it should be translated to their language. And of course, that it incorporates meaningful activities. So again, here we are. What's meaningful? Well, you've probably heard this idea before, but it needs to be meaningful to the person, not important for the person, right? It may be important for me to lose 50, 70 pounds. I don't know, but it's not necessarily important to me. So if somebody were to be writing a life plan about me, they might put that expectation on me, but I'm not going to be invested in making that happen unless it's important to me. So we need to make sure that it's meaningful to the person supported and that they're working on things that they care about. And I don't know about you, but I don't ever see somebody waking up and going, you know what I want to work on this week? I want to work on brushing my teeth. It still blows my mind when I come across toothbrushing goals. At some point in time, staff are just going to need to help support Sally or Jim with brushing their teeth. If it's something they've worked on for a period of time and there's been no growth, move on. Find something that's important to them. Because if it is important to them, you'll see that growth happen. All right, going to move on. So another big factor of the settings rule is about community. Okay, transportation to support community involvement. And I get it. I get it, folks. We don't probably have enough vehicles all over the place. We certainly don't have enough staffing to do all of this, right? So we're supposed to have the staffing to support scheduled and unscheduled activities. You know, if you or I got home tonight and decided on a whim, you know what, I feel like going out for ice cream. You could do that. It doesn't need to be on some recreation calendar in order for you to go. And so likewise, we should do what we can to support people to have that same right. If they feel like after dinner, I want to go for a walk, or I want to go down to the park, or I want to go out for ice cream, we should make every attempt to try to make that happen. It may mean that we need to use volunteers, involve people that aren't paid to be in their life. And we'll talk a little bit more, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment. But the idea here is that they gain full access and engagement in their community, right? Exploring new options, finding new things to try, to learn, to do. And this all corresponds to the DSP competency of getting into the community. And there's a big difference here, big difference. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between being in the community and being of the community. Certainly we can, drive somebody to McDonald's and go through the drive-through and order their meal for them and pay for them. And the person is in the community, but that's not a good example of them being part of community, right? Yeah, we got to stop looking at those as, taking those shortcuts, going the extra mile to make sure that people are learning that skill, and we're educating community, right? We're educating people in the community about the skills and abilities of the people supported, as well as, how to interface and interact with someone. I want to show you a quick video here. It's actually done by Joe Macbeth, and it's about a person who had interest in becoming part of a particular community. We'll debrief it at the end.
We met a direct support professional who told us about a man that he supports who loved Harley Davidson motorcycles, and the entire culture of Harley Davidsons, and the dress and the clothing and everything. The direct support professional wanted to help this man live some of that culture. I believe she was also involved in motorcycles and clubs and things like that, and help the man go down to the local Harley Davidson motorcycle shop to meet the owner, to meet some of the people that worked there, and to help him be part of that community. That was his community. That's where he felt comfortable. And not only did he go down and spend some time with the people, he met people in a motorcycle club. He went out for rides on a sidecar with some Harley Davidson riders, and he was part of that club. And this direct support professional and the others that worked with this man, who may have some value judgments against Harley Davidsons and that community, they didn't judge him. They honored his wishes. They honored his dreams, and they helped him find that community, and that community was incredibly gracious to this man. the disability and included him on all sorts of activities and rides and fundraising events. And this is really what direct support professionals should be doing. You know, we've also heard a lot of stories where direct support professionals would say, no, I think that's inappropriate. That's not a good culture for you. And we've heard stories like that. And that's unethical. We should not be judging other people's wishes or dreams or desires. We should do everything that we can to support them. Whether we think it's right or wrong is irrelevant. Direct support professionals have to walk that line without judgment, and sometimes may have to advocate to higher-ups that it's okay to do and take some risk and make sure that the people that we support have all of the information that they need to make those decisions on their own. And we should not be making those decisions for anybody. Our responsibility is to give you that information, make sure that you understand the consequences of a decision that you make, and then have fun. That's what it's all about.
Love that video. And you can see there's a difference between being in the community. You know, the person goes to the Harley Davidson shop and they look at the bikes. That's in the community. This DSP helped the person become part of a community, right? And those volunteers, right? People started, you didn't need staff to go on the rides. People got to know the person supported. They started picking them up and going on rides independent of the staff person or the person paid to be in their life. I just think that's super cool. Those are the types of things we need to focus and work on getting to. Next up is natural supports, right? Your role in supporting the natural support is to facilitate and promote establishing and maintaining natural supports and friendships, seeking opportunities to meet people. Again, people that are not paid to be in their life. And as we know this is goal area 2, positive relationships, building and maintaining positive relationships. And it can be tough to do. It can be tough to do. And so I ask, how do we do this? Well, one thing that I've learned in my time being a DSP on up through is there is a club for every interest. Kind of shocking sometimes to learn of all the different clubs that are out there, but there is a club for every interest. If there is someone that loves to do puzzles, there are groups that get together to do puzzles. A lot of times local Barnes and Nobles have puzzle night. Who knew? I didn't. I learned it, right? There are fishing clubs. There are people that like old cars or motorcycles. There are clubs for all of that. And so your role is trying to find what, learning about the person, what their interests are, and trying to connect them to those types of clubs or other people who like the same thing. Not just find another person in their house that likes the same thing. That's great, but let's get outside of that world, right? Let's break into helping them become part of community. So here's a big one. And this is the one that, people really like to talk about and debate the most. And so here's what I want to say from the get-go. In this situation, I want you to stick to the idea of the middle of the bell curve, okay? The majority of the people we support. We're always going to have outliers. We're always going to have the what ifs. But for this, focus in on the majority and the essence of what this is about. So the idea here is that people can have access to food at any time of day, whenever they want. So that would mean, if they get up at 2 a.m. in the morning and they're feeling like a bowl of Cheerios, that the reply should not be, I'm sorry, the kitchen's closed, or do you know what time it is? You really need to get back to bed. Those should not be the responses that someone hears. I don't know about you, but I don't eat on a strict schedule. I'm not I don't have a breakfast time or a lunch time or a dinner time. And Lord knows I don't have a snack time. Snack time is whenever my stomach growls or I just feel like it, right? And on top of that, I don't know about you, but I don't always eat healthy. I dare say out of the 160 people that are on right now, somebody's had a donut today. Probably. You know who you are, right? Donuts, not the best food in the world, super yummy. But why do we have a different standard for what we want to eat versus what a person wants to eat? I'll tell you why. Because we're concerned with a person's health. And I get it. There are people that have diet restrictions or medical orders, or maybe they have diabetes and we're concerned about their health. So we, do everything we can to avoid that donut. But you know what? It's also still about them and their home life. And people are going to make bad decisions just like you and I. I shouldn't have a donut, but if I want it, I'm going to go get it. So your job is not to, give them a dozen donuts and say, have at it. But it's also not to say, I'm sorry, you can't have any of these because, you said you wanted to work on losing weight. So I just don't think it's a good idea for you to have them. The DSP's role in this situation is actually to do some informed decision-making. And we'll talk about that also here in a little bit. But the idea is tell them, what the potential consequences are and let them make that decision. And you might not always agree with the decision they make. I know I don't agree with the decisions my kids make or my friends make. But they're adults. They can make those decisions. And so we need to respect the people we support by showing them that they too are adults and they have those decisions to make. So I'm going to address the what ifs before they even start rolling in. What if somebody, I actually used to support someone who didn't have the ability to know when they were full. They had a brain injury that impacted the ability to know that when they were full. So they could eat like a whole Thanksgiving dinner and still be hungry, even though one more bite and you know what's going to happen, right? In that situation, there were plans to restrict that person's food. It needs to be documented, right? But people that don't have that type of diagnosis or situation or have those behavior documented plans, they shouldn't be having that. No, you can't have that right now. Head back to bed. Or it's not snack time. Those things are not things we should be saying. Hopefully everybody gets the gist of where I'm going there. Spending, personal spending. All right, personal spending is addressed in the setting rules. So my opening questions are, do you always follow a budget? And what happens if you go over? You or I may have a credit card that we, if our money runs out before payday, we're like, here's a credit card, that Visa feels real good. Or maybe we have a line of credit on our checking account. But there was a time in which we all didn't have those things. And you know what? Back in the day when mom or dad gave us $20, when the $20 ran out and it wasn't time for allowance again, the spending stopped. We had to figure out another plan. And you and I may still be working on that, right? We still may be trying to make ends meet and make money stretch until the next payday, but we get to make those decisions. If we want to drive through Dunkin' and grab one of those fancy drinks, we do so. And it might mean that tomorrow we're eating peanut butter and jelly because we got to get to payday. Same goes with the people we support. We get so wrapped up into setting up all these safety nets for people and trying to protect them that they're not able to learn the lessons that occur in situations like that. If someone runs out of money on the 20th of the month and they're not getting paid until next month, they're going to feel the natural consequence of not having those funds. But that also goes to say we need to have some conversation leading up to that, right? And talk about the consequences of spending the money now. Informed decision-making. I want to share with you a really cool video that it's actually on our website, and it shows a great example of Keith, who has a tough decision to make. And I love to watch that. Pay attention to Keith's frustration in this video because I feel him. I feel him so much. Check it out.
Wow, I love the sneakers.
Oh, you like those sneakers, Steve?
Yes, I
Really?
do.
How much are they?
It's $140.
Now, you know we got a great escape going on this weekend with your family. You need the money for that.
I need money of that.
So, what would you like to do?
No, I'm like,
mean, we have a choice. You could get the sneakers. What do you think that you can do? What's some of the choices?
I don't know.
Here's the choices, Keith. We can get the sneakers now and then don't go to Great Escape tomorrow. Or you can wait to get the sneakers and then go to Great Escape tomorrow. Or you can buy a cheaper pair of sneakers and then still go to Great Escape. So what are the choices?
I like the sneakers.
Get the sneakers now
Yes.
and then don't go to Great Escape when?
I start
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
So if you get the sneakers today,
Yeah.
where can't you go tomorrow?
Escape.
Great Escape.
Yes.
But if you don't get the sneakers today, then where can you go?
Escape.
Great Escape.
I like the small,
So do you want to get a cheaper pair?
the cheaper pair.
That's what you want to do?
Yes.
All right, so if you get the cheaper pair, what are you able to do later?
Escape.
Great Escape. There you go.
Yeah.
So what decision do you want to make?
I like to both.
You want to do both?
Yes.
Sounds like a good choice, Keith.
Yeah.
It is a good choice, Keith. And I think that is an awesome, awesome display of informed decision making. And of course, it also goes along with putting people first, right? That informed decision making is taking your value set out of a decision someone makes and kind of walking them through the process here that this DSP did and working within that person's value set. I don't know, Great Escape or sneakers? I guess it depends if it was Jordan's for me. But, he had a tough decision to make, but at the end of the day, he made it. And the DSP didn't sway that one way or another. He helped guide him through that. It was a really cool situation. So another real tough situation that is, there's an expectation in these settings rule is that people have the right to have visitors of their choosing at any time. And this is both, a lot of these are both residential and day settings, by the way. This isn't just a residential expectation. So time of day doesn't matter. Yikes. So what if somebody has someone show up at 2 o'clock in the morning? Right? How do you handle that? Well, we have two things at work here. We have the safety of other people that might be living with this person, but we also have that helping people build positive relationships or maintain relationships that they have. That's a tough situation. But again, it's pretty rare that you're going to have the 2 a.m. visitor. And in those situations, you may need to make some phone calls and get some guidance from other people on how to handle it. But you know what? If family shows up at 9 o'clock and Jim's already in bed, we probably should go let Jim know that someone's there to visit and give him the opportunity to decide if does he want to get up and visit or would he like to catch up with them tomorrow? Or maybe sometimes people visit and you're not so sure of them. That's really not our call unless there is explicit danger at hand. Certainly you could offer them the front living room or another room, that's kind of community based for them to visit. If they choose to have privacy in the person's room, they get to do that too. Do the best in the situation that you can. And always, by the way, for all of these situations, document the steps that you take to support the person. Document that you suggested this or that you did informed decision making with someone and that they chose the final outcome. Document the steps that you took so that it's demonstrated that you did the right thing. Okay? Tough one. This really is a tough one. I don't think you're going to have many of the 2 a.m. visitors. So again, middle of the bell curve, and grab the essence of this and that people have the right to have visitors, even if it's someone you don't know. Okay. Home life. Well, this is something that probably has already been in the works. Administrators at your agency have probably already been working on door and bedroom keys for everyone, but certainly it's their home. The home is their home, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a group home, it's their home. You happen to work there, but it's their home and they should have access to it. whether that's a key to the front door, whether it's the code to the keypad, and also privacy in their bedroom, which means they can lock their bedroom if they want. Maybe they don't want anybody going in when they're not home, getting into their stuff. Do you lock your home, or do you lock your apartment when you leave because you don't want anyone getting into your things? Sure. They should have the same right. Personalization of rooms, I gotta say, across the board, I think agencies do exceptional at this. I've seen some really cool rooms in my tenure. Great personalizations, but people should be able to personalize rooms. And of course, it gets kind of tough in those situations where there are shared bedrooms. And hopefully all of our agencies continually work on trying to get rid of shared bedrooms, right? We're making a lot of changes here at the Arc of Monroe having to do with that. But shared bedrooms can be tough. So it's also about helping that person, those two people, right, negotiate and determine how they're going to deck out their room. Privacy as it pertains to bathrooms, emails that they have, or maybe phone calls. Nobody needs to eavesdrop on that call. That's the person's phone call, right? And let me tell you what, if I had a disability tomorrow and I needed your support, don't leave that bathroom door open for everyone to see. I understand you may need to support me and have some oversight and safety for the chance of me falling. But if I'm securely placed on the toilet, I don't want the bathroom door open for everyone to see. That always bothers me so much. And that's a straight up expectation in this reg, is privacy in many different areas. There should also not be uniform schedules. We shouldn't see bathing schedules, bedtime schedules, mealtime schedules. You know, I live in a home of 5. We don't eat at the same time. Every now and then we might all happen to be at home at the same time, and so we'll eat together. But sometimes we're all home at the same time and we don't eat together, right? Somebody feels like tacos, somebody feels like burgers, somebody feels like a salad. It makes it tough, but at the same time, you know, there might be somebody living in a home that is not getting along with somebody else right then. They shouldn't be forced to have to eat at the same time. There's no dinner time. If someone doesn't want to come to the table, they can certainly help make a plate, put it in the fridge for later when they do feel hungry. Bedtimes. I don't know about you. I mean, I personally like to go to bed early through the week, but I don't want to be told when to go to bed. If I want to stay up and watch SNL, I can do so. And so should the people supported, right? The overnight person shouldn't be coming in and going, what are you doing awake? You need to get to bed. It's late. Now, granted, maybe they do have work the next day. And so that's the beginning of an informed decision-making conversation. Are you aware that if you stay up much later, you're actually going to have a hard time getting up tomorrow, and tomorrow's going to be a really rough day at work for you? Those are the types of conversations. At the end of the day, if they want to stay up, they stay up. And bathing, I don't know about you, but sometimes I bathe in the morning, sometimes I bathe in the evening, sometimes I take a bath, sometimes I take a shower. There should be no set bathing schedules. And I understand it gets really tough, especially in larger locations, to kind of work that all out. But again, we got to do our best to make that happen and not have these set schedules like we did back when I first started. You know, I started in the 90s. We had bathing schedules. We had laundry room schedules. We had bedtimes. Those are all gone. We're evolving past that. God. Okay. And of course, all of this relates back to that home life. People have a home, just like you and I, and should be treated as if it's their home. So lastly, one of the ideas here is that we should support the cultural competency of people. And again, this goes back to putting people first. I dare say, again, now we're up to 162 people on this call, and all of us, even those that may have a similar culture, probably express that culture in different ways, right? Just because you are a Christian doesn't mean that you follow the same rules or value set as another Christian. And so cultural competence has to do with kind of these 5 steps. Acknowledging, right, that there's cultural differences across the people you support and yourself. But understanding your own culture, engaging in that self-assessment of how is my culture different or similar to that person? Acquiring cultural knowledge and skills of the people you support, and then making sure that we're viewing our behavior and their behavior within the context of their culture. When I first started working here at the Arc of Monroe, we actually had 3 locations that were completely for people of Jewish faith. I had a lot of learning to do. I was not familiar with the Jewish culture and the traditions or celebrations of the Jewish culture. And I am no way an expert, but I certainly have learned a lot about it because it was important to me to help them live a life that fell within their wishes of their culture and traditions. So that's the type of work we need to do. And you know, it gets tough. Sundays roll around, people might want to go to several different churches. Again, we might need to go back and rely on that community that we talked about before, right? If we're visiting a church for a period of time, hopefully somebody within that church becomes a natural support to pick up the person, and we don't have as many places to go. We might be mapping out, you know, go to 7 o'clock at this place and 9 o'clock at this place, but people have a right to express their faith. It shouldn't be a no, because that's not what I study. You know, I'm Christian, so I don't want to go to your church or your place of worship. That's not our role. Our role is to support their culture and to learn to support their culture best. Now, there are other things that have been going on probably for quite some time at your agencies. And I'm quite certain that your administrators are well versed on these things. And it has to do with, you know, those rights and the due process and reformatting our policies and procedures to make sure they're all in line with the expectations of this code. That people are having occupancy agreements now, which are kind of like leases for where they're living, outlining the expectations of living there, and almost like a landlord and rentee kind of situation. That we're outlining the process in the event that we do need to restrict someone, right? Like the food situation, that we have rights accommodations in place, and that we do our best so that it doesn't impact other people they may be living with. All of those processes hopefully are all developed within your locations. Agencies are going to be held accountable to make sure they're doing satisfaction surveys with all people supported. And again, probably you already have been, right? Probably already have been in some way, shape, or form, but it needs to be a little bit more formalized. That information is written in plain language, and that we're providing translation or Braille services as needed for people whose English isn't their primary language. And of course, HIPAA, we know HIPAA, it's been around for a long time, but a spelled out expectation here is that we don't have anything publicly posted about people. You shouldn't be able to go walk into a group home, right? Walk into a location and see publicly posted information about a person's life, culture, date of birth, things of that nature. So that wraps up the information sharing with all of you. And at this point in time, I want to go ahead and stop my share and take any questions that you may have.
Mel, I see towards the beginning of the session, someone asked about a doctor's orders.
Yeah.
Do you see that comment? Do you want me to read it too, or did you see that?
I didn't see the comment. I would imagine it falls in that line of, the doctor's orders are given that somebody only has a certain amount of caloric intake, right? And I guess my answer to that is, do we always follow doctor's orders? It's our understanding and it's our job to, again, do that informed decision-making and inform them that the doctor doesn't want you to do that. And here's the consequences should you do that. But at the end of the day, if the person wants the donut, it shouldn't be you standing between them to get it. Here's a situation in which you can stand in front of it, right? Explicit danger. Somebody has a peanut allergy and they just sat down with Mr. Peter Pan and a spoon. You're going to get involved, right? You're going to get involved. You're going to get that peanut butter because it's explicit danger to the person that they're going to have an allergic reaction. But the donut isn't likely to give them an immediate danger. I would dare say that's probably better to process after the fact that they have a donut and talk about the choice then rather than when they are focused on the donut. And if they do have diabetes, certainly there's other things that we can do, right? Increase water intake, increase exercise for the rest of the day, include a little bit more grain and fiber in their diet for the rest of the day to help counterbalance that. So there are things that we can do and still help the person have what they'd like. Anything else?
Here's another tough one. Are auditors being informed of all of these choices?
Oh, yeah. The auditors are well versed on the settings rule. They've been given a lot of notice about this, and they will be looking for these things as they visit. You know how auditors almost always kind of have that hot topic, the thing each year that they're looking for. Sometimes they're focused in on medication, sometimes they're focused on facilities type things. I promise you, they're going to be focused on the expectations of the settings rule. No doubt at all.
Sherry, you have your hand up.
Hi, thank you very much. Just going back to the question or what you were talking about with someone who might have diabetes. And yes, do we potentially follow everything the doctor tells us? But what is of concern is that, let's say they have the donut and, within that week, they have 3 donuts. And something happens seriously to them, their health. They go into diabetic shock or whatever. Now the concern becomes there's an allegation against the DSP for giving them the choice. Mm-hmm. And serving people that don't have that comprehension, it's very difficult to reason with them. So what?
So I'm actually going to share a scenario. It's not around food, but it's a very similar. There was a doctor's order for particular medications for a person we supported. And they were choosing not to take their medications day after day after day. And of course, that is a very important thing for them to take, right? Imminent danger that something is going to go wrong. Every day, we inform the person of the consequences of not taking their medications. It came from the DSP, it came from the manager, it came from family, it came from clinicians. We were all informing this person of those dangers. We were documenting every one of those conversations. When BPC came in, everybody kind of was on pins and needles thinking, uh-oh, here comes a citation, right? Because this person, hasn't been taking their meds. We let them know that they could very well end up in a nursing home, right? If they weren't taking care of their health was going to decline. And here's BPC looking at our stuff. No citation. Documentation is going to back you. Even in an investigation, documentation will back you. And I know, and listen, I'm still talking here about the essence of the middle of the bell curve, because you are going to have outliers. You are going to have someone who will take advantage of that situation and have multiple donuts, right? That is a situation that you may need to involve a team to problem solve. What I want to make sure I'm getting through today is the essence of the expectation that for the 80% of people that are in the middle of that bell curve, that we are supporting them in making their choices without controlling what they're eating or when they're eating.
Thank you.
So I think people are really stuck on the restrictions part, and one of the comments implies it's not worth a DSP taking the role of a DSP because we're going to get in trouble, or and then another comment refers to, if an individual has a ground or diced diet, what do we do if they want whole food but it's a choking hazard, right? So I think we really need to distinguish the situations that we're referring to and read the regulation well so that you understand the parameters. As Mel had indicated, it's about documentation. It's about team meetings and making informed decisions. It's not just about a life without rights versus responsibilities. There are boundaries, and those are also described in the HCBS waver, right? There's boundaries to the decisions that people make and the situations in which people live in. So I think we could have a whole nother training, Mel, on the differences between, you know, what is prescribed and what is the best way to handle a situation to support a person to make a good decision.
Absolutely. And here, you know what, at the end of the day, auditors are not the enemy. They can be a resource to you. If you're stumped with a situation, there is nothing wrong with reaching out to the person that typically comes and does your visit to say, hey, here's the situation we're facing. Do you have suggestions on how we could approach this? You know, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing, but this is a real struggle for Jim. And so we're open to hearing your thoughts on how to proceed. It's not just a one-way communication. They are actually friendly people. We can call them and get advice as well. Any others?
Just a lot of comments. I've asked auditors for advice. I've been told directly I cannot tell you what to do or how to do it. There's a very fine line between right and risk and legal obligations.
I think it's probably time to bring Chris Lyons in for a presentation. Chris Lyons does an amazing presentation. He's an attorney as well as an executive director, and he gives an amazing presentation about liability. And people are always worried about the liability of supporting someone, and he makes it very crystal clear. As long as you have an what is it, ABC action plan, assessment. I'll let Chris tell you. It's an ABC, but I can't remember. Unless basically it's as long as you have done an assessment, have informed the person and created a plan moving forward, your risk in liability is quite low. But we will make sure, I will make that happen in the next few months to have Chris Lyons, watch for it, Chris Lyons to do a presentation directly about the liability involved with all of this.
I think that's about all of the comments or questions that were addressed in the chat. There are some good comments. People are looking forward to hearing more. And there's also some people have experienced difficulty advocating for people who have CAB involvement. I can't remember what that acronym stands for, but I know it's a Willowbrook class. So folks who have previously lived in institutions, there are additional protections and supports put into place. And all of these things can be challenging. And I would also, just as a disclaimer, right? It's not, you watch this training and Mel said they can eat whatever they want kind of thing, right? It's going back to your supervisor, it's having conversations, it's addressing challenges, and that's our role as support. If we're feeling like we're in a position where we're stuck and we can't do something or we can't support somebody in a certain way, we have to go back to the team and talk about it and say, look, this is really against, what is being prescribed in the final regulation, and we need to fix it.
Code of ethics. First allegiance is to the person I support. All other activities flow from that allegiance. So yes, approach it as a team, get familiar with the settings rule, right? Become an expert in the settings rule because it will back you. And do your best. You do awesome work. Don't let this get in your way. All right. If no other questions, I just encourage all of you to please make sure to check out our upcoming events. We'd love to see you on future workshops, and we're always open to topics that you'd like to see more of. If we haven't created it or can't create it, we will find the expert who can. So with that, thank you, everyone.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great training.
All right, thank you guys.